Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm your host and your relationship coach, Fahima Mohammed. A very, very warm welcome to all of you viewers watching, whether you're streaming on Facebook, Twitter, or live on Sky Channel 752. A very, very warm welcome and another episode tonight for all of you to hopefully inshallah join in. It would be great to hear some of your questions, queries, or comments, and you can do so by dialing directly into the studio on 01924 231 Please do ask the bill payers permission, as standard network rates do apply. You can also WhatsApp for free on our service, where you can also send in your messages anonymously, and I'll read them out to myself and my guest so that we can also answer your queries. And that number is 07585835150. We have another topic and guest for you tonight, as we do every week, and it's ongoing. And I really do appreciate you tuning in and supporting, and also sending in any of your comments and queries, as well as the fact that you do give us some suggestions, which I do read and take on board. So please do keep sending them through. I do appreciate that. Tonight, we have a guest streaming from Newcastle in the UK, and she's going to be talking about choosing healthy and conscious relationships. And we have with us tonight Shalina Ali. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Fahima. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I'm looking forward to it. It's lovely to have you tonight. Thank you so much for your time. It's amazing what you do, and I really do admire your work, and I want to learn more about it. But before we go into that, and especially the actual topic, can you give us a clue as to what you do and what is Shalina all about, and especially the lovely work that you actually do create for everyone that you assist? Our viewers will be really interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a mindset and relationship coach, and I work with women who are single and married who are facing problems with repeating patterns. So I really help them overcome unhealthy relationship patterns, and usually they tend to stem from childhood, but really, if they're single and they're looking for a partner, they have a lot of unconscious thoughts and patterns that really block them from finding their right match. So I help them overcome things that limiting beliefs and things that they have. We go through their thought patterns and help them heal from past heartbreaks and past wounds. For women who are married, they tend to be wanting to look for more connection in their relationship. And usually what I found is that it starts with them and how they feel about themselves, how they are thinking about themselves. And once we really transform how they see themselves and kind of the identity that they are stepping into, we find that their relationships transform. So I'm really enjoying working with women.
Amazing. Well, the show is here for both men and women, and I'm sure some of your tips will actually apply to both, because as much as we want to help women, we also need to help the men, because we are here in joint sort of partnership when we're getting to know each other. So inshallah, whoever's listening right now, it's definitely going to be tips for both genders, and inshallah you can actually learn some strategies and tips that Shalina is going to be sharing with us tonight. Please do send in your questions and queries, or if you want to call in to speak to her, we can definitely do that on tonight's show. We have the numbers at the bottom of your screen remaining for the rest of the episode, and please do take advantage. Now, when it comes to choosing healthy and conscious relationships, there's so much content out there. There's a lot of us that actually know more than we should nowadays, because psychologists are putting out so much content, so many things, and it doesn't really, I feel, apply to everyone. So when people actually say certain things, they really roll with it. That's why I feel like it's a case-by-case study. So how do you take a client through their journey? Because it's very much thrown around now that you have issues because of the past, because of your childhood trauma, because of growing up. Is that for everyone? Because there's a lot of people that grew up in quite normal settings and they still have issues. It doesn't have to be that, like trauma or that deep. But do you think that regardless, there's still issues that we need to unravel? How do you pick on that? How do you find that out? And because, we don't want to send a message that we are all grown up, sort of like damaged in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. You know, we're not broken. We don't need fixing at all. It's not that. I mean, I can completely relate. I had an absolutely, great childhood. I didn't have any big traumas. And we often hear people talk about big traumas and small traumas. Sometimes it's just a collection of negative experiences or experiences where we didn't feel good about ourselves, or someone said something negative and we believed that. As a child, we really do almost feel like the world revolves around us. So anytime something doesn't go the way that we expect or want it to, then we make it mean something about ourselves. And quite often the root cause of many relationship problems come back down to the fact that they believe they're not good enough or they're not lovable enough. And that's the meaning that children tend to create when, for example, their father says no, they can't have this toy, or their mum's busy cooking or cleaning and she's stressed out about something, and maybe she didn't hear what the child said. And just if you just imagine a young child, clinging to their mum, saying, "Mummy, mummy, I want to tell you something, I want to show you something." It could be something as small as feeling ignored, really desperately wanting to show a picture that they've painted, but then the mum might be busy, or she's busy talking to somebody else and she can't drop everything in that moment to give all of her attention to the child. Even something as small as that, we create meanings, and a young child will tell themselves, "Oh, there must be something wrong with me, maybe I've done something wrong, I should stop asking, or I shouldn't be going to my mum right now." And we make ourselves believe that we are not good enough, that we're not deserving of love.
No, that makes complete sense. And I'm glad I brought that up because a lot of people might just look for things that are not necessarily there. But what is there is the fact that we are conditioned and programmed in a particular way, and we have this perception map as we're growing up, and it kind of creates that kind of, like you said, this kind of limiting belief of how we are. So we all kind of have that. And as we grow up, we have to unravel or sort of like peel the onion within us in order to go to the core and to the deep of it. Do you think that every individual needs to sort of like go soul searching before they go for their soul, partner? Because at the end of the day, that seems to be the issue that we keep coming back to, is that when we're looking for somebody else, we're looking for either, like you said, the unhealed wounds that we've had within ourselves, or the fact that, we're looking for this perfection when we are not perfect and we don't actually
Mm.
see that. So age, what age and what stage do you think that we should actually start thinking about self-development and our own self before we enter into a relationship? Because especially in our Muslim community, it's, you're born, you grow up, you have your education, and straight away, without any sort of thought, it's like, find a partner and you need to settle down and get married. And it's just meant to be like an automated thing without any training. And I don't think it's even like any training much even in the Western world, to be fair. But for us, it's definitely so automated. And I think that's the real problem with breakdown. It's not necessarily all the other issues, but I think now we're unraveling that. So how and what stage do you think that we should start maybe trying to figure out who we are and what we are before we actually get into sort of, thinking about marriage? What kind of stages and steps would you advise?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because personally, I believe it should be as soon as possible. I really wish that we were taught all about personal development in school and about emotional regulation, because I really feel it comes down to emotional resilience. And we were never taught any of this. And it seems like it's all come to light now in the past few years, whereas everybody else lived their lives and they were totally fine without any of this healing work, because, this inner work. But like now it just seems like it's all come to the forefront, and I think it's just because we're no longer in survival mode anymore. Our lives have changed. Most of us have grown up in this country in a Western world. We're no longer about surviving, just trying to keep a roof over our heads. We're watching a lot more movies, reading more stories. We're thinking about the fairy tale and the love stories. But essentially, to me, it comes down to emotional resilience, and that's not taught in schools. So the earlier we can teach that in schools, I really feel that's going to really help a lot. So yeah, we don't all have issues in our relationships. I think some people are lucky, if I'm honest, in some ways, but I think also it's personality types.
Mhm.
And because relationships are about teamwork. So it comes down to, how are you thinking about relationships? What's the mindset you're coming into a marriage with? Is it coming from a place of I need to get married because of the pressure from parents, families, extended families, society, culture? I must get married by before 30 so I can have children, have a family. I think it's all of these pressures that really don't allow us space to make really strong and healthy decisions for ourselves. But I think if we
Absolutely.
had,
And do you think what kind of support do we need around us? Because I mean, we've got family as well. But at the same time, do you think that we should seek not just therapy, but like, some sort of professional, like I said, self-development courses or things like that in order to unravel? I mean, how do we do it? You can't just, sort of wake up one day and just have a realization. Where did it start for you?
yeah, I think for me, I think it's a lot more in social media now. We've got so many resources, from Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, personal development books. It's talked about everywhere. For me personally, so I guess for me, it started when I came across my own relationship problems. And then for me, I really wanted to delve deep into what makes a relationship work, what makes a relationship really healthy, what makes it successful for the long term. And that's when I started really researching into relationship dynamics. And for me, I guess it just started on YouTube. And then it's kind of a rabbit hole from there once you get started. I think you've got to
Amazing. Well,
want
we're
it.
going to go back into that in a moment, Shalina, because we are coming on to a break, and I think you've really given us so much food for thought to begin with. And I think it's really important that, you mentioned that you started thinking about healthy, conscious relationships, which is the topic tonight, when you did start thinking more about what is relationships. And we're going to come back and answer that question and, really go into what is a healthy relationship and what does it look like and what does it mean to be conscious, because we think we're conscious all the time but we're not. So that's the other thing that we're going to sort of learn today and hopefully unravel, what does that really look like. So hopefully from this conversation you'll have something practical to grab onto, and inshallah we will be back in a few moments. Please don't go away. We just started. Inshallah, we're going to have so many more questions for Shalina, and please do stay with us because we were going to be talking much more around this and giving you so much more tips and insights. Please do stay tuned, and we will see you in a few moments. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. Again, thank you so much for joining in. We've already had the first section of the episode, which was really interesting, and it was really opening up to the topic and where we're going to come to understanding and knowing what is a healthy and conscious relationship. Now, Shalina, before the break, you kind of just stepped into that, saying that you ran into information and YouTube videos that kind of open up your insights about relationships, and that word healthy and conscious relationships. What does that mean? Not everyone understands that. Even if we use these kind of terminologies, we don't go deep into knowing what that really means. Could you break it down for us, please?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And these terms do get thrown around a lot. So healthy and conscious relationships are really about, for me personally, they're about awareness. They're about awareness, self-awareness first, I would say. Awareness about yourself, who you are as a person, what you value, what you enjoy, what your future vision is, what you actually want and need from a marriage, from a long-term relationship. A lot of us don't actually know ourselves, and that's where the main problem lies. From my experience with coaching clients, speaking to women all of the time, and personal experience, we don't know ourselves. I didn't know myself growing up until the past few years, where I've really delved deep into who I am and done this inner work, this healing work that we talk about. So for me, a conscious relationship is about awareness of yourself and awareness for the other person that you're either getting to know or you are married to. And again, just learning about each other, coming from the same the same place in terms of, do you have the same vision? Are you on the same road? Are you heading towards the same goal in terms of what are your values? And I talk a lot about the values of peace and love and freedom. And I really love where in the Quran Allah tells us that, you know, Allah has created spouses for us so that we can live in peace and in tranquility. And I feel like if we come from a place of awareness and curiosity to understand ourselves and the other person, then we are making ourselves aware. So it's about your conscious thoughts. What are you choosing and deciding for yourself and for your relationship? I
I
hope that
love
makes
that.
sense.
I think you've explained it so beautifully. I could not have done it better myself. And I'm so glad I asked that question because I do come across so many clients myself when it comes to looking for a relationship and they're not in a good place and they think to find that happy place is to find it with somebody else when actually it's with yourself first. And I keep saying this and they're like, well, we came from a good family and you know, I've had all of that sort of surrounding around me. And so if I don't find that one, then I'm not going to be happy. And I'm like, no, you need to search for it yourself first. Then only you can be happy in the other relationship. But a lot of people do find that they are stuck in unhappiness or some sort of like minor depression or you know unfulfillment and they're going to find it in the other partner. What do you say to somebody like that? Because I do hear this again and again where regardless of their situation, it doesn't have to be so dire, but they feel that a relationship is an escape and it's a route out of where they are now. And that is so wrong to go into a relationship with, especially, you know, in the long term. So how would you sort of like speak to somebody who is going through that dilemma? Because I think it's quite common.
Yeah, it definitely is. Nearly every woman that I've spoken to who is in a relationship, a marriage that they are feeling disconnection in or are feeling unhappy in, it's because they were actually got into the relationship for the wrong reasons and they chose their partner based on the wrong reasons. It was more to escape something that they were in before. Maybe they didn't have freedom. You know, they value freedom, but they didn't have it in their family home. They didn't have it with their parents growing up. And so they choose their partners just to escape what they had in their situation at home, not realizing that that's not necessarily going to address the issues that they have because the issues start internally. And it's a void that we are trying to fill. We're trying to please everybody else around us without pleasing ourselves first. And really, this is why we need to know ourselves so that we know what's important to us. So we know what kind of person is right for us in the long term. And what I find is that a lot of women are actually trying to fill a hole, like you mentioned.
Mm.
They're coming from a place of trying to fill a void to make them feel complete. And another person cannot make you feel complete when you don't feel whole in yourself. And so what I find is it's like any other kind of addiction. It's like I often find women who are in this, what I call love addiction, because they're like addicted to men who can't give them what they need. But then when there is someone who is available, who wants to give them all of their needs, they then become avoidant.
Mm.
And we can talk about attachment styles as well, where you have the anxious attachment style and the avoidant attachment style. And it's like this ping pong game where you're just going backwards and forwards.
Well,
And it's because we don't have
explain.
that
I'm really
awareness.
interested. Yeah, please go ahead into that because I really would love to know, and I'm sure everyone that's listening would like to know more about the attachment and avoidant and all of that. So yeah, please take it away.
Yeah, what we find is that we all have a certain attachment type style that we had with our parents. And I find, especially in our culture, in our community, a lot of us, especially women, young girls, have an anxious attachment. And so they were anxiously attached to their parents. Their parents really were protective of them. You know, they had this almost codependency between them. Like they didn't really want to let them go. They didn't want to let their girls go free, live their lives, travel until after marriage. So we tend to repeat codependent relationship patterns because of the dynamics we had with our parents. And then boys and men are the opposite. So then
Yes.
they end up becoming the avoidant because they're trying to run away from someone who just wants to hold on to them. And so it's like a game that just repeats. And this is why we need to know our patterns so we can break those patterns.
It's interesting you say that because as you even were speaking earlier, I was just thinking of the word when you said, we're trying to escape and, there's freedom. And we're not trying to sort of say that you need to escape from your parents before you even get married. You need to sort of like come to an understanding or an acceptance, because even sometimes your situation will not change. But, you have to sort of, come to some sort of like peace within your situation, even if it's not changed, for you to actually move on to the next. Because it's very difficult to change your family dynamic, especially from birth. And, families that have gone through the same generation sort of like ways of being, you cannot sometimes, change that. But it's about understanding it, acknowledging it, knowing that it may not be something that you like, and try and maybe have some sort of conversation if you can about it. Because, I don't want people to hear this and think that, oh, okay, we can't escape when it means marriage, but then do we just escape our parents? Then no, you can't do that either. You need to find some sort of peace within that situation. So how do you reconcile your kind of situation if it's not that great? We're not talking about something deep, but just something that you're not happy with when it comes to your family. And like you said, a lot of it does come like parental wounds and emotional wounds from the home, the caregiver, your surroundings, your environment, society. And you can't really escape that. But what you need to do is what? What is it that you need to do in order for you to say, okay, I'm here, whether it changes or not, I can still be here. And then only I can move forward. What is that bridge? What is that sort of like gap that looks like?
I think it really comes down to being strong enough in yourself, having the inner confidence where you can speak your needs, where you can express, what you need in a loving way. I think often we don't know how to express ourselves when we think there's going to be conflict. And something that's been on my mind this week is healthy conflict. Because we haven't learned how to do that. We either end up yelling and shouting over each other to get heard because we've never felt heard. But actually, I really feel like we need to all learn how to have healthy communication, loving communication. And that only comes when you are filling your own cup up with love first, when you're feeling whole in yourself, and you're not feeling like you desperately need to get a point across by yelling and raising your voice. For me, it's really healthy communication, loving communication, and being okay with disagreeing. Like if someone doesn't really understand you, like a grandparent or a parent, that's okay. You can still have a loving relationship with them, and we can try to set healthy boundaries with them. But we have to be willing to stick up for our needs,
Mm-hmm.
where it's really impacting on how you feel in terms of your mental health or your energy. If it's really draining you too much, you are allowed to take healthy space. There's nothing wrong with taking healthy space or requesting some time out, but always trying to come from a place of love. And I think that's the key here, just to, when we are setting boundaries, rather than setting them from a place of, I really don't like this person, I really don't want to be in this
Mm-hmm.
situation, more coming from a place of, I love you, I love me. Please, can we work this out? Can we have a conversation about it? And I think in all relationships, particularly intimate relationships, marriages, we need to practice more loving communication with each other.
Absolutely, absolutely beautifully said again. I think that's so amazing that it gives people hope that even if they feel they're in a sort of like sticky situation, that there is a way of dealing and moving forward. Do you think you need to have a healthy relationship with your parents in order to have a healthy relationship with your partner?
I think it helps a lot, but not necessarily. You can break a pattern anytime that you want. And this is what I help the women I work with, because we can overcome a pattern anytime that we want. They will repeat until you become aware of it. So we just need to become aware of them.
Amazing. Well, that's perfectly said. And we are coming on to our second break coming up very, very shortly. Just want to also remind the viewers that you are more than welcome to call in or send in any of your messages via our free WhatsApp service. It's really, important that we do have these conversations because our household is, what is society today? Our units is what build strong society, and inshallah, having these conversations can only enhance our homes and make them healthy and happy. And that's what, the world needs right now in our community. And, the fact that we are, partners raising children, the next generation, these are really, really important for us to actually continuously divulge into, especially with the enormous rate of divorce that's happening. We need to definitely go deep in, but we will be back in a few moments. Please do stay tuned, and we will be talking more to Shalina, who's going to be sharing so much more of her wonderful information with all of us. And I will catch you on the other side. Please do stay where you are, and we will see you soon. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm having such a wonderful conversation with my lovely guest tonight, Shalina. Honestly, it's so wonderful hearing you speak, and you so, easily put it into such a lovely space of where people can really resonate. They can take, sort of heed as to what you're saying and put it practically. Because I really want to bring it home as to, we have issues. Everyone has something that's going on. We have challenges. This is why we're here. We know that. And we're just trying to sort of make it real as to what are those challenges, not throwing out terminology out there, but with the terminology, giving it meaning and showing you how you can really use that kind of, those strategies to actually build yourself and your relationships. And relationships are not just important for romantic relationships. Do you think it's important when you have good friendships, good family relationships? I know we can't be friends with everyone. I know not everyone's going to like us and love us, but generally, when you have someone, for example, who has constant issues with people, compared to somebody who, even if they have issues, they can resolve it and they don't have any bad sort of vibes between them continuously, shouldn't we check ourselves according to the relationships around us first as well? Because, if you think as well that, I'm always falling out with somebody, or every few months or every few years, I'm recycling my friends, doesn't that mean that we've got to look within a little bit? Because that also shows how your romantic relationships are going to evolve. Does that maybe correlate, or doesn't it?
Definitely, absolutely. I mean, we have to look at the common denominator, and the common denominator is going to be yourself. You're the first person that you have a relationship with. You're going to be with yourself for the rest of your life. You are the common denominator, and we always say that your relationships are a reflection of yourself. Your internal world is going to reflect out into your relationships, and I would honestly say focus on all of those other relationships first, because it's good practice for you. Look at the way the relationships make you feel. At the end of the day, it's how your relationships make you feel, because you're going to carry that into your long-term relationship, your marriage. And I always say to the women that I work with, rather than focusing on this neediness that I need to get married, I need to find my soulmate, I need to get married this year. As great as it is to have a goal, I really think when women are feeling good about themselves, when they're valuing themselves and loving all of the other relationships in their lives, that's when the right person shows up, because they are just enjoying life. They're feeling good, they're excited, they've got great opportunities. And this is what attracts the right type of person, because you're not coming from a place of need anymore. But it's really
How
important
do
to
you
understand that.
feel? How does one feel good about themselves and value themselves? Because, again, that's another thing that we say, but how do you do that? Because a lot of people really find it and struggle very much so. And we are in a very toxic society that as soon as you actually say something good about yourself, you regard as arrogant. Whereas actually loving yourself in a healthy way is good for your mental health. So we have this kind of like, sort of like, toxic way of even putting someone down if they're putting themselves up. And even though we know that they should do it, I think we do need to change that narrative as well. And people are shy to even talk, quite positively about themselves because they feel that they shouldn't. I've always wanted to address that, and it's really come up now that you're speaking. And when you say value yourself, how does one value yourself?
Yeah, I personally feel it's about what you like about yourself. When you're valuing yourself, what standards do you have? What are your
Mm,
boundaries? What kind of relationships do you allow into your life? For example, if you do have people that put you down for being confident, not arrogant, then you have to ask yourself the question, are they the right people for me? Are they the kind of people that I want in my life? So valuing yourself is reconnecting to your inner voice and your inner needs for me. What your inner desires are. Do you enjoy being around people who put you down and don't make you feel good about yourself? How would it feel to be around people who really get you, who really understand you, who respect you and value you? But it really starts with the way that you talk to yourself and the way that you have that inner dialogue with yourself, because we'll always believe what other people tell us until we change the narrative that we ourselves adopt within our own minds. So
absolutely.
it's really about, what are you telling yourself on a daily basis? Are you choosing to believe people who are toxic or negative? And can you allow yourself to choose to believe positive thoughts instead? Empowering thoughts about yourself. And it really does start in your thoughts, it starts in your mind. So if you can visualize something, if you can decide something in your own mind, then you can create it in your relationships. But you have to value yourself enough and have those standards high enough where you actually allow yourself to open the pathway to allow that into your life. Does that make
That is
sense?
so true. Absolutely. No, it makes complete sense. And to be honest, it takes a strong personality to be able to fight that, your inner demons, as well as the outer ones where you're surrounding your environment, people around you may not be, your supporters and your fans and your cheerleaders. And I'm not saying that they should be there to be completely, sort of enabling bad behavior or, like you said, arrogance. But at the same time, when you have got value within yourself and if other people don't see that, then there really needs to be a sort of like a boundary. And I think what you even said earlier about, having those relationships around you and looking at that and how it unfolds in your life makes a huge difference as to how you're going to choose your next relationship as
Mm.
well, and how people look at you. Because I think another thing is when we're looking for a partner, we're looking at that person in that very sort of like closed closet space, when we actually have to look at them through their friends' eyes, through their family's eyes. And of course not everybody's going to be liked, but majority of the people around them, even if they have a few, they should be able to say certain things about them that you're going to feel that, wow, I admire that, or I'm motivated by that, or I'm really like inspired by that. So that is also another indicator, I think, when you're trying to look for a healthy relationship, is look for the healthy relationships that they have around them. Now, the other thing I want to ask you about, we did sort of go into a little bit about it before, about the conscious, but could you describe the conscious and the unconscious kind of like thought and relationship within ourselves, so that we can maybe have a, definition and variations, that we can actually define it and understand it and be aware of the conscious and the unconscious?
Yeah, so I think a lot of us do live our lives on autopilot. So we really just, I guess, follow our heart and what we're used to. The trouble with that is that you will repeat familiar patterns, and that will come down to how your relationship was with your primary caregivers. So unconsciously, we're always following familiarity, things that we have experienced in the past. And so that can go both ways. That can be a good thing if you've had healthy, loving relationships in the past, and you had a healthy relationship with healthy space from your parents or your family members. But if you didn't feel good, then there's a risk that you may repeat that pattern again because it's what's familiar to you. Our brains are wired up in a way where our brains want to keep us safe, and the only way that we experience safety is from experiences that we've had in the past. And this is why I notice many women end up repeating the same cycle over and over again. And so when we do the conscious work, when we get conscious with our beliefs and our thought patterns, then we can start choosing the types of relationships that we want. And it really does come down to choosing and deciding ultimately what you want. When you're unconscious, you tend to um, we look for chemistry. You tend to look for the spark, you know, and it's not necessarily the best way to choose your husband, your lifelong companion, because that means that you aren't consciously choosing. You're allowing past experiences, past patterns to dictate what you're attracted to. And so I always say if there's intense chemistry, we've got to really look at what is that chemistry. The conscious relationship is about choosing and discussing, choosing your values for yourself, knowing what you value, and then, you know, almost getting to know someone in a way that you are also looking to see if there's any alignment there between the two of you. Do you have values that match? Do you have personalities that can fit together? For example, are you both really harsh? Normally, there's one person really harsh or one person really soft, and that really works together. But we really, I feel like we want to look for someone who's forgiving more than anything. Because when you get together based on chemistry, the honeymoon phase ends. You know, the Gottman Institute calls it limerence. And after that ends, then, you know, the bills pile up, the family members start interfering. Everything can start getting out of hand when we're not conscious about what we're prioritizing in life. So I really feel like it's about priorities.
But how do we break those patterns, Shalina? Does it take a while, or is it different for everybody in, you know, with regards to, is it just a decision that you make, or is it a process?
Yeah, it's a process. It's a process, and everyone's on their own timeline. We can't really guarantee a timeline for anybody. But it's really just a commitment to doing the work. You know, if someone's really committed and they just want to decide to change the pattern, they can do it really quickly. You know, they just get to follow the process, seek the support, and do that internal reflection work. That's what it really comes down to, really getting to know yourself, reconnecting to who you are individually as a person without anybody else around you. Who are you when you're on your own? You know, who are you when you're most comfortable?
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you think that when you do go through that process that you can, you know, change friendships around you and build new ones, or do you think you can still maintain your existing people around you? Because sometimes I've heard that, you know, change, it does change your whole outlook on even your existing friends, which may not even be the same anymore. Is that healthy?
Absolutely, I think it is. I think that you are always a match for a certain type of person. You're always a match for a certain type of relationship. So when you're working on yourself, developing yourself, and almost elevating your identity, you're only ever going to have people who are a match for you. So if old friends drop off, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a conflict. They can just fall away, and you know, you can still have a nice relationship. But sooner or later, they will drop off if they're not a match for you.
Oh, I think that's so refreshing to hear and enlightening, because coming across that recently as well, it can be quite heartbreaking, not just to lose, you know, sort of a relationship romantically, but even the friendships that you might grow out of as you evolve in yourself. And people need to be aware that when you do the inner work, it's not just you that's going to change. People around you, you might find that, you know, you don't align with anymore. And that is something that you need to be sort of conscious of as well, that, you know, all that change might sometimes make you feel lonely to a certain extent as well, because, you know, through that evolvement, you are going to, you know, have some sort of like, you know, differences with the people around you. You know, this conversation is just getting even more deeper, more interesting, but please do stay with me as we are coming into our another break, final break for the episode. But do catch us on the other end as we have the final part of the show, and we have still more to ask Shalina. And I hope that you join me in a few minutes where we'll be having the final part, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We are on the final part of tonight's episode. How quick did that go? And if you have just tuned in, please do rewind, take notes. There's a lot of information that Shalina has shared with us tonight that is practical, that you can actually use in your own home and in your own sort of environment with your own situation and circumstance. And that's why we have these episodes that we can have professionals come in and really help you change and transform so that you can have much more fulfilled and better relationships, regardless of whatever that you're going through right now. Now, I loved what you said before the break about, evolving and changing. And with that, there's nothing wrong in having a different dynamic of friends even around you. And that sort of shows that at the end of the day that, people are there just to align with you. And if you are strong enough to be able to, transform yourself to where you need and what serves you, then inshallah, when you are choosing that spouse, you'll be a little bit more rigorous and a little bit more conscious as well, because you've actually done the work already when it comes to whether it's family or friendships, colleagues, and things like that. And it's so important to have really good friendships around you, even if they're not the ones that you are close to, but you can be civil. People always think, I'm in a really good relationship. It's so great to be in a great relationship, but it's also managing the ones that you don't like and the ones that you shouldn't even have, and the people that that should not even like you, but you can be cordial and you can be respectful. Now, that for me is managing relationships. That for me is being actually good at relationships. It's not just the ones that's always rosy and good times. It's like even in the bad times, you can come out on top. And people don't really get that. That's why when we talk about divorce and things like that, let's look at that dynamic of that relationship of even your past and see from there, have you grown? Have you learned? Or is there still the victim blame or, that kind of like, putting it on the other? So that shows and shares a lot about you, regardless of the scenario. And I think that's a really good indicator as well. Now, when it comes to your own identity, how do you sort of help women or men generally? How would they unravel that so that they can actually really come into their own, so that they can feel fulfilled, happy, and valued, so that they can move on to that loving, fulfilled relationship with a spouse?
Yeah, I think this identity part is really important because it's really about awareness of who you are as a person. We need to know who we are. And because many of us live our lives not really knowing who we are or living life to please others and really just following what the status quo is, or you go to school, you go to university, get a job, get married, and we just kind of follow that path that society has set for us or the previous generations have set for us. But we kind of never spend any time getting to know ourselves. And so my work is really around understanding that we all have an inner child, and the inner child has needs and desires and wants. And when we reconnect to that inner voice, that inner child, that's when the real identity comes out. That's when I find that my clients, they kind of remove all of the fluff that's hiding who they really are. They tend to live their lives hiding, because a lot of the time women are taught, not to speak up, let men eat at the table first. They just hide themselves, they play small. And when we do that, we lose ourselves completely. And so
It's
my work is
funny.
really in.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there. It's so funny you say that because it's come on to my next question, and I'm going to bring it on even quicker because we are coming to the end of the show. But when you say that, women are not speaking up and they're not, but don't you feel now that women are very much in their masculine energy, and that can also be a problem? So how do we kind of combat that? Because I don't think we have a problem of that anymore. Of they're there at the table before anything. If you wanted to use that analogy, so or the reality. So we have a lot of masculine, feminine. How do we, is that a problem when you're trying to find a relationship?
Yeah, I love that this has come up. So I feel like we have two extremes. We have the women who are still playing small, and then we have the other like boss women who are like just crushing it. They're earning amazing incomes, amazing careers, jobs, and they're very much in their masculine energy. They're surrounded by masculinity all of the time. They're independent. They don't want to rely on a man. And as much as it's great that you don't need a man, relationships are really about the polarity, about creating a balance of masculine and feminine energy. And it's really in our nature for women to want to relax in their relationship. They can go out and have an amazing job and be the boss, the CEO, in their business, but in their relationship, it doesn't really work because a man naturally wants to provide, they want to protect, they want to lead, they want to be in their dominant masculine energy. But when you have two masculine energies, they kind of collide and they just butt heads. And so that doesn't work. And so no matter what you are outside of your relationship, and even as a parent, we have to be in our masculine energy. You know, as a mother, you have to be able to guide your children and take care of them and discipline them. But when you're with your partner, when you're with your husband, you have to be aware of the fact that femininity is what really helps you. You know, when you just allow yourself to be girly and feminine. Some people find that really cringy, and I can relate to that because I've been there and I hear women say this all the time. But really, there's so much power in that because actually, you end up holding the power over your relationship in the sense that your husband will do anything you want, pretty much, when you allow him to feel like your hero. He just wants to be your hero.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
any man just wants to feel like Superman, and they want you to be Lois Lane when she's with
Yeah,
Superman, you know.
absolutely.
Not when she's with Clark Kent, when she's with Superman. They just want someone to melt into their arms. And I know for some people that sounds weird and funny, but essentially that's what masculine, feminine energy does. It creates like this magnetic attraction. And it's that polarity that a relationship needs, you know, from a
I'm glad
healthy
we
place
addressed
though.
that. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we addressed that because it is true. At the end of the day, you can be who you want to be and you can still be that kind of like, independent woman. But if you are going to be in a relationship, you need to understand what a man and a woman sort of, can give each other, and you need to understand it from your point, either perspective and their points of view. Now we are coming to the end of the show, but before we do, and I will ask you more questions, but before I forget, I just know that people would love to know more and hear more about your content. So could you share with us, like, where can they reach you? And, if you have any sort of like social media handle that, people can actually, after the show, can maybe follow and subscribe to what you do and even, get some coaching from you. So it'd be great to sort of, for you to share that with us right now.
Yeah, thank you, Fahima. Yeah, so I'm really just on Instagram at the moment. So I'm always on there. I'm always posting on there daily. I love being on Instagram. And it's just my name, Shalina_Ali_. And you find me on there.
Amazing. No, definitely go give her a follow. It's really important that we do support, our guests, and they keep, giving their time and importantly giving and sharing all these strategies. But you can get so much more if you actually go and follow Shalina right now. And inshallah, you will have much more information, even into, her personal coaching as well, which I think, a lot of us will need. Now, we are coming the last maybe 4 minutes of the show, and I want to leave it with you if there are anyone out there that's struggling and they're feeling, in a particular way where they, maybe losing their identity or don't know how to find it, or they just don't understand boundaries or healthy and conscious relationships, what would be your final kind of closing thoughts for tonight?
Yeah, I would say that if you know that you want to be in a loving relationship, it really starts with you knowing what you want, getting clear on what you want. The most common reason why people are in unhealthy relationships that I find is because they never knew what they wanted to start with. They didn't know who they were and didn't really have a clear vision for what their future relationship would look like. So I would say really try to understand what it is you desire. What are your desires in a loving relationship? Once you know that, start looking into it. Do your research. There's books, there's videos, but at the end of the day, it's about accountability if you really want to make change in your life. And that's where, working with a counselor, therapist, coach can really help you move forward in your life really fast and get you to become a match for the right person for you. There's nobody perfect out there, but I do feel like everybody has their right match. And it's really about acceptance, understanding what you're willing to accept, understanding what your non-negotiables are. So really, we just need to get to know ourselves first, so then we can ask for what we want, and then we know what we're willing to accept. That's going to at least give us that life of peace, love, and freedom, where we can actually build a fulfilling and deeply connected, long-lasting relationship together.
Amazing. I've only got maybe a minute or two, but I just had a quick question. I was wondering, do you think you could go alone? And if you found a partner before marriage, do you think it'd be wise to even go and do some sort of coaching therapy with, before marriage with your potential spouse? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love this idea actually. I think the best time to work on yourself is before you get into a relationship, but the second best time is when you're in a relationship. And so if you're both coming from the same page, if you both value personal development, if you both value personal growth, and you both value your relationship enough, then you would make a commitment. I personally believe, and I would love that, to see that more and more, where people are individually working on themselves, but also together, and just continuing to come back, because things come up, people get triggered, the past comes up, and we can't always keep on top of our mindset. And we just need another perspective a lot of the time. We just need someone unbiased, not family, friends who are going to be taking sides, but someone who's impartial. We really, if you want a healthy relationship, we need to keep on top of our mindset at the end of the day and always come back to each other. Instead of going to other people, you want to be a team.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for tonight. It's been so wonderful speaking to you, Shalina. Really, really, pleasurable. And more importantly, all your insights and everything that you've said, it's just something that I'm sure loads of people are going to be gaining from today. So I just want to say a really, really, thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much for hearing. I just want to say it's been a really big pleasure, and I'm really glad that I got to come on here. Thank you so much.
Honestly, it's been lovely tonight, and I'm sure our viewers will agree that Shalina's been an absolute star today. And again, sharing so much information and having some real raw, organic, authentic, sort of conversations around the realities of what's happening. And it's so true when you are sort of like at that age of maturity, whatever it is, you can actually seek help and build yourself through self-development. Now, we will be back same time next week. Please do join us. Keep watching and sending in your messages and comments and queries. And inshallah, we will be back next week. A really, really good night. And we will see you again. Take care. Have a lovely evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.